IndyCar season is underway. The debut race of the 26th season taking place yesterday on the streets of St. Petersburg. It was Alex Palou winning in pretty impressive fashion. Running right behind him was the guy that was the pole sitter, Scott McLaughlin. And in Scott McLaughlin's ear for the course of the race, a longtime staple within the paddock. And, of course, the president at one time of Penske, Team Penske, and then a bit of a vacation, but he is back in the paddock in Tim Cindric, who joins us now on the Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. First off, Tim, how are you? It's a pleasure to have you.
Good, man. How you doing, Jake?
You know what? I can't complain. I'm curious from your standpoint, and I want to get into just kind of your emotions of all of it in a minute. But when you are a car that starts on pole, and really McLaughlin, I thought, had a solid day running. It didn't look like you guys had any sort of an issue or he put the tire wrong anywhere. And then you finish in second. Still a solid finish to be on the podium. But do you take away from that that it was a good weekend or a weekend where you left something out there?
It was solid. I think to start the season out, that's what you want to do. You don't want to play catch up. But, certainly you want to win the race. That's what we're there to do. But, to sit on the pole and, run second to Alex, right now I think everybody's racing for second until we get just a bit better. I think the speed is there. Scott actually had more speed than he even showed on Saturday. But he drove a great race. He executed. He did everything he could do really to do what we did yesterday. A solid start, but we want more for sure.
I want to get into, Tim, and for those that are unfamiliar with it, and I apologize for having to rehash it this way, but for those that may not be familiar, you've been a longtime staple within that team for Roger Penske and Team Penske. And then, and I can't recall if it was 2 or 3 years ago, but the incident with the push-to-pass capability when in a race that wasn't supposed to be there for 2 of the 3 cars for Penske, and a penalty for that. And then last May, the incident where there were parts on the rear of the car that were not to be touched, and they failed tech inspection. Will Power and Joseph Newgarden had to start the Indy 500 at the back of the field, and then you were one of 3 who were relieved of your duties from the team itself, and then the word coming that you will be returning as the strategist. What was just kind of your emotion through all of that, and maybe even the trying nature of it and things you've learned?
Yeah, thanks for bringing all that back up again. But no, at the end of the day, obviously, I've been with that team since really 1999, and have been through a lot of ups and downs. As a kid, it was the team that I admired. It was the one I always wanted to be with. Roger, he'd always been one of my heroes or whatever. And through all that, first of all, I did nothing wrong. I was simply a victim of certain circumstances. And those that truly know me, they don't question anything relative to my integrity. And really, that's all that really matters at the end. And, the support I've had through those people just reminded me of all that, helped a lot because obviously I put a lot into all that. That's really it in a nutshell, and probably all I really had to say about the whole thing today. And to have the opportunity to really come back and work with people that I really enjoy working with, as I reflected on it, after all that went down, as you can imagine, I had quite a few opportunities to do different things. A lot of them in the IndyCar paddock. And, the difficulty for me was I put so much into the whole Team Penske situation. And, I understand accountability. I get how that works, especially in the corporate world. And if there's a corporate race team out there, it's the one I've worked for even before Roger bought the Speedway and IndyCar and all the rest of it. Some of the voices just got louder when all that happened. And, he was in a situation there where, he had to make some decisions or whatever else. And, for myself, I have to live with those decisions, whether I agreed with them or didn't agree with them or agreed with how the whole process went, with the various parties. What am I going to do? You just have to kind of move on. The hardest thing for me is, when people question your integrity, because it's kind of the easy thing to do when you've been part of, so much success over the years. I get all that, and I don't blame people for, believing what they read sometimes. But, in this day and age, I've always been really careful to judge, until I know somebody personally or whatever else. But, I had some great conversations with people that I didn't even know in St. Pete that I didn't expect. And all that's pretty helpful when you go through something like that. For me, it's been my passion, motorsports. I've been fortunate enough to experience as much or more success than I ever imagined. And the hard thing for me and all that was really understanding what I wanted to do. Because you're in a situation where, you're not going to live forever. And, I started kind of thinking about the various criteria that I wanted personally. And, for me, I got a great family, got great friends and I had a really, really rewarding career at that point. And I didn't want to repeat my steps in terms of running a race team again or starting one from scratch or trying to bring one from, mid-pack to the front or whatever. Because, I had already stepped aside or tried to step aside, at the end of 2024, just really to live life a bit and kind of experience some things that I hadn't done in 30 or 40 years and reconnect with friends and family in some ways or whatever else. And, I did a lot of that last year, and I did obviously a lot of reflecting on what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to do the same things again, but I missed the competition side of it. And, around the holidays, I thought to myself, man, I need to either just get out of motorsports altogether and forget about it and just say I had a good ride or a great ride, or I need to stay relevant somehow and then let it come to me and see what happens. And, I'd had different people approach me to, hey, how about just go on the weekends? Then you got flexibility to, do whatever else you want to do in life. Come on the weekends, help us out, or, come do a May-only deal with, drivers that can win the race and that type of thing. And if you asked me back in August if I wanted to do that, that didn't really hit home for me because I'd kind of been there, done that. And then, around the holidays, I decided, you know what, this thing passes you by real quick if you don't get involved. So I decided, going racing on the weekend still allows me to be involved in a lot of other things and have the flexibility to do what I want to do. And I made the decision to go pursue that. And I had my mind made up where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And, I thought to myself, man, I think so much of the people that I worked with over there, guys like Jonathan Duguid, Travis Wall, Matt Johnson, the drivers, the engineers there, just the whole group there, some of these guys, we refer to them as Myron, John Bouswag. They've been there so long. I've been through so much with them. I don't want them to read about what I'm going to go do for somebody else in the IndyCar paddock without at least letting them know that that's what I'm going to do. So, I reached out to Jonathan Duguid, who's running the team now, and I'd hired him out of college actually back in the ALMS days. I think it was like 2005, and I sent him an email, and I hadn't talked to Roger since August, or hadn't communicated with him even since August. And I copied him on my email to JD and just said, hey, just want you guys to be aware, I'm gonna go pursue something in the paddock on the weekends. Didn't want you to read about it. I assume you guys got your bases covered. If you don't, I'm open to a conversation. I still admire the people that you have and the group that you have. And, for me, I helped obviously put together, a lot of those people. And anyway, the JD reached out pretty much immediately and said, hey, can we sit down and have a conversation about it? Your timing's good. We're trying to figure out how to put our group together, with the most depth that we can have. And Roger reached out within the hour and said, basically, hey, this is something you really want to do. It'd be a win-win for us. So that's how it all went down.
Did you feel the fact that you were able, Tim, to go back to the same team, did you feel like that was kind of an exoneration?
Well, when I mentioned to my wife that I was going to, put together this note to those guys, she was kind of perplexed. Not that, I mean, she loves those people as well, and she's just like, really? And I said, yeah, because regardless of the answer, regardless of what happens, it's going to answer a few questions for me. independent of what the reply is, or if there's not one at all. And, if it happened to all work out, it would probably send a few messages without me having to say anything,
right,
or Roger having to say anything. And so that was my mindset. So, yeah, for sure. I think, for me, having gone through all that over the years and had so much success with so many people in that group, for it to kind of all end in, what I look at as more of a political mess than anything else. I like, hey, if there's a chance to write a different chapter in there and, have a different ending to that whole story, I'd be all for it. So here we are.
Well, Scott McLaughlin was thrilled about it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Tim Cindric, my guest from Penske, of course, he was the race strategist for Scott McLaughlin, finished second yesterday after landing on pole. And McLaughlin was open about the fact of, the optimism he had to work with you again and the chemistry you guys have. For you personally, though, Tim, were you nervous going into the weekend or just curious as to how you would be received or how all of it would go down?
You're kind of anxious. I guess, for me, I'm at peace with myself. Like I said, I there was nothing that I did wrong. I mean, when you're at the top of the totem pole, the head hits the ground hardest, So, I understood all those different things and kind of the side of it. I mean, like as what I said before, for, the people around me and the people that really know me, that's what has always mattered the most to me. And, that proved to be really strong. So I guess I was a bit more nervous about how rusty I was going to be. I mean, honestly, I didn't follow a lot of the races in detail. I'd watch the start or I'd watch the end and go do my thing. But I wasn't, totally engaged last year after all that went down. So there've been a lot of rules that change, people change, roles change. And, I certainly wanted to respect, the management group that's in place there within Penske. And, JD and those guys know that I'm not looking for the job. I'm not trying to promote myself. I just want to do a good job within that environment. And for me, it's really been the past, 8 or 10 years, I guess what I get out of really being part of all that is watching others have success that haven't seen the success that I've been able to experience. And, Scott's somebody that, I met him way back in, and I can't remember if it was 14 or 15, through Marcus Ambrose. And, having the opportunity to kind of go full circle with him from the times we talked about going supercars racing and him coming over to our team there to, the dinners we had over there, talking about, how he could go racing in America to then being on his box in his ear. Yeah, it's a great opportunity and something that I really want to help him succeed in whatever way I can.
Tim, so,
I
know that
that was more for me what I was after. Go ahead.
I know one of the things that you did, because I reached out to you, just before the season began, going to the Olympics had to have been awesome. I mean, just going and seeing it. And I'm curious, I'm assuming you were there from a fan standpoint, but, your son's a racer. You've been around it forever, right? How cool is it, I guess, or what can you learn from watching athletes at the top of their craft in a sport other than the one that you are caught in the minutia in from day to day?
No, it's incredible. Obviously the patriotism is second to none. We had the chance to take our kids when they were young teenagers, to the London Olympics in 2012, the Summer Olympics. I actually stayed in Zach Brown's flat, downtown London. Went to the Olympics there, and they never forgot that experience. And, us going to the Winter Olympics, they actually organized it all. And that was what they presented, Megan and I for Christmas, was basically an organized, trip to the Olympics for 7 days or what have you. And, I'll give you an example. We went to the short track speed skating finals, and the only tickets that were available at that time, because it wasn't one of the events that the kids had picked out, but we happened to have a window where we could go, and it was convenient. And I said, my wife, I'm like, we can go sightseeing, or we're here for the Olympics. Let's go to the Olympics. And the only seats that were available were the best seats. And you got to swallow pretty hard sometimes, and you're just like, hey, that's why we're here. Let's just do it. And we had front row seats to the speed skating finals. And the cool thing about it, okay, the races and all that are really good and you're up close, but where our seats were, and you couldn't pick your seats, they just tell you it's in a section. But the athletes would come out of the locker room and actually put their skates on and do the ritual and all that in these chairs literally right below us as you leaned over the rail. And you watch these Olympic athletes getting ready to go basically determine their fate and all the things that they had worked for. And it was just so cool and so rewarding to see all that firsthand in terms of their preparation and then basically the release they had after it was over. So
did you want to get in their ear and tell them when they had to come in and pit and stuff like that? Did you?
No, man, you're there. You're nervous for the guys that have to go reset up the apex pucks during the live event. You're like, you realize if they drop one of those or if they fall, they're going to screw up the whole race. But no, you just get a whole different perspective of it all. And yeah, you just, it's hard to explain it all until you actually see it and experience it firsthand.
Well, Tim, I'll tell you what, man, on a personal level, I told you this at the time when I saw the news you were back. You're always accommodating on pit road, and I've got a great deal of respect for the work that you've done and the accomplishments you've had. And so for you to get the chance to come back and just kind of put that all in the past, my apologies for bringing it up, but it's part of the story, right, as to the story of you being back. So, I certainly appreciate it and appreciate the candor today. And Phoenix up next, and then after that, it is a new track, Arlington, going right around where the Dallas Cowboys play. So plenty of racing between now and May to get to. So I appreciate you squeezing a little time for us right now.
Hey, I just want to know who's going to be our quarterback.
That's a good question. I think it's probably going to be Daniel Jones, but I don't know. Do you have any eligibility left after your Hall of Fame basketball career at Rose-Hulman?
No, man, I'm just a fan.
But I think it's going to be Daniel Jones, but we'll see because big day tomorrow with the franchise tag and Alec Pierce hanging in there as well. So we'll see if they can get a deal done. He's a smart cookie, though. I think he's going to get some dollars out of him.
Good deal. Good deal. Hope it all works out.
I appreciate it, Tim.
All right, thanks.
All right, Tim Cindric joining us on the program.